Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has defended himself after Virgin Trains questioned his claim that he couldn't find a seat on a service from London to Newcastle. Mr Corbyn said he was forced to sit on the floor, after which Virgin released video appearing to show him walking past vacant seats. Mr Corbyn said today he'd needed 2 seats for himself and his wife. Our political correspondent Ben Wright reports.
He claimed it was a ram-packed train after walking through a carriage of apparently empty seats. So why didn't Jeremy Corbyn sit down after first boarding the 11 a.m. from London to Newcastle? Today, at the launch of his NHS policy, unwanted questions about unreserved seats.
Can we have an NHS question?
We live in a free country.
I know.
I'm entitled to ask you
I'm very well aware we live in a free country, and I'm very proud to live in a free country, as are you.
To his obvious irritation, Mr Corbyn was quizzed about his walk through Coach H.
Yes, I did walk through the train. Yes, I did look for 2 empty seats together so I could sit down with my wife to talk to her. That wasn't possible.
Today this train is completely ram-packed.
Jeremy Corbyn was filmed sitting on the train floor because his team said there were no unreserved seats free. Now Mr Corbyn says the problem was he couldn't find 2 seats together, one for him, one for his wife. After 45 minutes, Mr Corbyn's party were seated by train staff. Today, Mr Corbyn's campaign manager insisted they had played it straight.
Jeremy's a man of principle and a man of integrity.
But as Jeremy Corbyn conceded himself today, he could have had a seat immediately on that train if he had wanted one for himself. And he's incredibly sensitive about this.
If there'd been seats available for him to sit down, he absolutely would have gone and sat in those seats. He walked through, didn't think there were any seats available. And in fact, you know what?
He wanted to sit with his wife. That was the point.
The train crew actually apologised for the fact that there weren't any seats.
On today's 11 o'clock departure from King's Cross to Newcastle, there were plenty of unreserved seats free and some support for Mr Corbyn.
I've been riding this service for many years and I ride it all the time, and there are many times when this train is absolutely jam-packed and there is no place to sit.
I have been on the train on a return journey and seen it in the evening, but never during the day.
But I just think it's ridiculous that it's grown up into such a massive thing, because there's so many bigger things going on in the world.
But Jeremy Corbyn's leadership rival was keen to stir the row.
What is clear from the footage that I've seen is that he had a seat on the train, and there were seats on the train, and he chose to sit on the floor for the purposes of the video.
This spat may have caused Mr Corbyn some discomfort, but a bust-up with a private train company may well fire up his supporters. Ben Wright, BBC News, Westminster.
Labour leadership contender Owen Smith wants to talk about Brexit, with a new call to block Britain's departure from the EU until there's a new vote on the terms of the final deal. Jeremy Corbyn wants to talk about the NHS and returning more services into public hands. But at their press events today, the topic they couldn't avoid was train overcrowding and whether Mr Corbyn sat on the floor of a Virgin train by default or by design. We will be discussing the path to Brexit in a moment, but first, here's our political editor, Gary Gibbon.
In a bid for the votes already now being cast in Labour's leadership contest, Owen Smith promised Labour members he'd try to head off Brexit altogether, rallying MPs to vote against it and pushing for a second national vote on the issue, either in a second referendum or a general election.
The right thing for Labour to do, and the 480 members of Parliament across Parliament who voted to remain, is to pause this and to make sure that we don't trigger Article 50 until we know what the terms of the deal are, and then we can put it back to the British people if it is a worse set of terms than we imagine, either at a second referendum or at a general election. That's the democratic way to deal with this.
Jeremy Corbyn said he wanted to keep EU worker protections, but didn't back a rerun of the vote on EU membership.
A referendum did take place, a result was delivered, and I think Parliament has to work with that result.
Mr Corbyn was pledging to end private sector outsourcing and financing in the NHS.
A Labour government will have to take the whole NHS into public ownership and make sure it remains there.
No, he was asked about the CCTV footage released by Virgin Trains yesterday, which appeared to show him walking past empty seats on a train to Newcastle shortly before he recorded a video on the floor of the train saying the carriages were ram-packed.
Today this train is completely ram-packed.
The CCTV images show you walking by empty reserved and unreserved seats.
I'm glad you've watched the CCTV so carefully. It's a really important issue, this. Absolutely crucial to the future of the whole nation and the NHS. But let's get to the details of it. Yes, I did walk through the train. Yes, I did look for 2 empty seats together so I could sit down with my wife to talk to her.
He suggested Richard Branson might have been motivated to intervene because of Labour's plan to nationalise the railways. The Information Commissioner's office confirmed it was making inquiries into whether Virgin Trains had breached data protection law in releasing CCTV footage. Virgin Trains' website is still offering discounts to Labour conference delegates heading to Liverpool next month to see who wins the leadership contest. Supporters of Mr Smith today claimed their man was ahead in the contest thanks to an anti-Corbyn sign-up drive. But few Labour figures buy that. If Mr Smith did win, then the main opposition party would have a stridently pro-Remain leader. But there's no guarantee Parliament will get the chance to vote on the formal notification of Brexit. No guarantee that MPs would try to reverse the decision of the voters. Academics suggest something like 420 constituencies in England and Wales did, after all, vote for Brexit. Gary Gibbon, Channel 4 News, Westminster.
Both contenders for the Labour leadership found out just how hard it can sometimes be to get across a chosen campaign message today. Jeremy Corbyn ended up having to talk about his failure to find a seat on that train rather than the NHS. For Owen Smith, it was his reference to a lunatic at the top of the Labour Party and not his chosen topic, Brexit. Mr Corbyn insisted again there were no spare seats, at least not 2 together, on that train. Mr Smith promised that the lunatic he was referring to was, in fact, himself, not Jeremy Corbyn. So that's all clear then.
It's exactly a month until the winner of the Labour leadership contest is due to be announced. But day to day, both candidates seem to be finding it difficult to get their main messages across. It was easy to find a spare seat at Jeremy Corbyn's press conference today. The row over whether he had to sit on the floor on a train or not chugs on, much to his irritation.
Well, no, can we move on, please? It's discussing the NHS today. We're discussing the NHS. Can you have an NHS question, please? Yes, I did walk through the train. Yes, I did look for 2 empty seats together so I could sit down with my wife to talk to her. That wasn't possible.
The Information Commissioner is now looking at this footage released by Virgin Trains on Richard Branson's Twitter account as a possible breach of data protection laws. It appears to show Jeremy Corbyn walking past available seats before he was filmed sitting on the floor to highlight his campaign to renationalise the railways. So Jeremy Corbyn versus Virgin boss Richard Branson, 2 men with little in common other than a beard and very different views on how to run the railways.
Well, I'm very pleased that Richard Branson has been able to break off from his holiday to take this issue seriously with the importance it obviously deserves. I hope he's very well aware of our policy, which is that train operating companies should become part of the public realm, not the private sector.
Owen Smith's attempt to unseat Jeremy Corbyn also veered off the rails after he appeared to suggest during a campaign event that Jeremy Corbyn was a, quote, lunatic.
And what you won't have from me is some, lunatic at the top of the Labour Party.
I didn't use that language with reference to Jeremy. I used it with reference to myself. Somebody who said I've been running around like a lunatic. If anybody's been offended by that, I apologise unreservedly.
Bitter and bad-tempered already describe this campaign, so a row over trains and who called who what only add to the froth and the fury as the fight continues between the 2 men over who will occupy the leader's seat on the Labour benches in the place behind me. The chatter around the campaign can drown out policy debate, but it can also solidify support. Owen Smith's language, colourful, regretful, but understood by those who doubt Jeremy Corbyn's competence. And for those happy to clap along with Corbyn, like his supporters at an event in Essex tonight, bashing a billionaire railway tycoon for attempting to derail his campaign will only be celebrated. Angus Walker, News at 10, Westminster.